Time.
All right. We'll open up with the Brimfield Township regular zoning commission meeting, and today's date is April 20th, 2023. And we'll give a roll call.
Tom Johnson.
Here.
Debbie Darlis.
Here.
Tom Sargent.
Here.
Seth Halen.
Here.
Colette Wilson.
Here.
Bill Anderson.
Here.
Jenny Miller.
Here.
Full board.
Okay, if I can have a motion to approve the minutes, and that would be, I believe, for minutes from the March 9th, 2023 meeting.
So these are the minutes that just got sent out at 6:30.
Yes.
So that you can give them.
I'll need a second.
I read it.
Yeah. That's right.
You could table them too if you want
We'll wait
to.
for your chance to review them. You're waiting for a second.
Oh, I'll second it.
When you made the motion to accept them,
Oh,
you only do one.
I didn't, I made the motion?
I make the
You
motion,
made the motion, okay, then let's,
I'll second.
okay,
because I read the minutes.
okay.
Because
All
I chatted at 6:30.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
She even apologized.
I should have skipped to the first one, to accept the agenda. So I get a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
I second.
I got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Taken care of. All right, we're gonna have a working session, and we have several issues here to review during the working session. And the first is discussion of parks and recreation specified zoning district to protect the parkland within the township. I believe we were working on that for several months now, and where are we at?
So where we're at is regional planning has this, and they're starting to develop some language specific and pull different communities together on what they have. And then what's going to come back, it's going to be a very rough draft coming back to the board where you guys can actually revise and redline everything, send it back to regional planning with all your comments. And then it'll be a work in progress. I would imagine this is going to be probably 2, 3, 4 month process of getting this in. This is going to replace the OR district. So everywhere where you see the whole OR district, we eliminated the OR district entirely. Then this is going to go into that section, and it's going to protect the parkland. It's going to we're hoping to give authority to the parks director to make certain decisions in there, as well as some to, BCA, as well as trustees and things like that. So one thing that you might want to mention, Tom, in our discussion, and this might relate to this as well, because you talked about, and Tom has a great idea. I'll let him share it. I don't want to steal your thunder, but it can be, but we should probably think about it in this terms with the parks as well. So if you want to go.
Yeah, that would fit, but first, why, this is just a general question. We replace the OR, why wouldn't we put the parks under OC?
Well, there's going to be blended some OC. So OC is specific open space conservation.
Right.
And they do allow for homes in there, and there's some certain language in the OC district that eventually we would like to change, because if it's open space conservation, obviously, in my mind, that means protected wetlands.
Yeah.
Lakes, things like that. So I'd like to see, this is going to be a transition, get the parkland developed first, and then we'll start going through the OC district and make.
Would we end up with a final product that we might have that incorporated in the OC eventually?
It could,
Any residential?
it could be, and that could be a suggestion to regional to add it to the OC. We were looking at a specific park district just to have its own zoning classification on a zoning map and show the parks there. And then, obviously we want to have certain protections in place. We don't want, in talking with the parks director, we don't want somebody to sell this in the future and develop it. This is park that we want to protect for the residents and keep as parks.
in regards to the conversation that Mike and I had the other day. It was pertaining to EVs and electronic or electric vehicles and the move that we're seeing to adopt a standard of electric vehicles throughout the United States. Not only electric vehicles, but we're looking at lawnmowers, electric chainsaws and the like. And we saw Cleveland, I guess, introduce legislation there to use money to give $100 to any community member that purchases an electric lawnmower or other appliances. I'm not specific to the specific details, but they've done that. So what I was thinking was I'm working currently, the issue with electric vehicles, there's a couple. You have buyers of cars that are totally electric that have done a lot of research and have the resources. This is about resources that people have to install a charging station within their home. You have three types of charging. You have charging level 1, you have large charging level 2, and 3. And I think there's a 3A or something that's like a real super rapid charger. Each one of those, as you go up, costs more and more money. And looking at the structure of housing in Brimfield and other areas, if you have apartments, it's going to be difficult for who's going to put that charging station in for that one individual in that home that has, or apartment building that has an electronic vehicle. So what we find is individuals that purchase, they number one, will have the resources to purchase all the equipment necessary to operate the EV. You have then another group that purchases the EV that doesn't, and they're not really sure what they got, but they know they got an electric vehicle, and then they find out it doesn't fit. And because they can't charge it, or where they go, they can't figure out how that happens because the obstacles are there where it's not convenient for them. And they trade it right back in within 6 months. So we have a group of vehicles that go out, we never get back. We get vehicles that go out and they can come back as trade-ins in the future. What's interesting is the EV market going to have a cash for clunkers program somewhere down the road where gasoline engines, the federal government's going to give you an incentive to turn those in for EVs. There's a movement, and what Mike and I talked about is getting Brimfield oriented in that direction because it's coming. Whether or not you like it or not, it looks like electric vehicles are here to stay, and how we adapt and how we change our zoning to accommodate that transition and make it as seamless as possible is the discussion. One of the things is we have a highway out here, 76, it's pretty prominent. An EV, we can talk about the range. EVs get anywhere from 250 to 300, with an extended battery might get up to 500 miles. We're centrally located to take advantage of that from large metropolitan areas coming out of Philadelphia, New York City, coming out of Washington, D.C., and the like, on traffic going eastbound and westbound back to those areas. So range-wise, we're kind of like in the location where people run out of juice. And this would be a great place to take advantage of that, because if you have a high-impact charger like Teslas have, they're going to be here maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but if you have level 2, they're going to be here for 4 hours if they're in. So there's an economic aspect of that as well to investigate and take a look at that. Also then servicing the community by maybe incorporating some need of electric charging stations in the community for development and so forth. So that's my spiel.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point that, the apartments, now Redwood, Pride One that's coming in, they have garages. So they can easily transform their garages and put the receptacles within those garages for people that are renting there. But Copper Creek or any of our other apartment complexes, there's really nothing, you really can't purchase an electric vehicle If you're living in an apartment, there's nowhere to charge it. So, you brought up that good point that maybe we look at the code as well for having a subsection, maybe, for apartments and stuff like that, and then provisions on what electric charging stations would look like, maybe in the 500s or something of the code. Just conditional uses, and then along with that, put conditions on how it's going to look, how you're going to landscape it, how many we're going to allow, if it's infinite, if it's for each spot, whatever. But at some point we have to have these in place. Coles has already reached out, and we want to start putting them in there at Coles, and you ask what our provisions are. We don't have any. They're like, I guess go ahead. But I'd like to get something on the books too. So
Well, I work with a city councilman from the city of Canton, and they've used some federal money to install several charging stations. I know Kent State has 7. Those are operated by a private vendor.
mm-hmm.
There's a fee, I think it's like $1 an hour or something like that to charge. So we're not talking about something that is free, we're not asking, but they would probably have a vendor that, most of these you log into your account via your telephone, you put in your VIN number, how it works, and then you plug in your car. Tesla has a proprietary charging system. Others, commercials, they have, I think, a J1772 plug that they use, and there's an A and B, depending upon the type you have. So that's yet to be sorted out between the EV manufacturers, I guess.
And it could be something as vague as putting in, if you're coming in to put in these electrical charging stations, it must be, landscape, burn, whatever, and it needs to be, I would put as a conditional use in all the districts. Let it go into a subsection, let them go to the BZA and explain what it's going to look like, just so it doesn't look like an eyesore. We want to promote them, but we don't want it to look like.
Right. And I believe that somewhere down the road, your gas stations are going to look different, or your
For
refueling
sure.
stations are going to look different than they are today. Especially if at the national level, the political will says, fossil fuels are now $10, $20, $30 a gallon or something. You're going to see some motivation then at that point to transition, and there's going to be a transition then to electronic charging stations, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen, at least from petrol production companies. So that was something that I was thinking about, how we go forward and incorporate that.
And it goes kind of hands in hand with the park and rec, because, let's say we do add some parking and some electric charging to some of the parks, and then it can help supplement and generate money for the parks as well. So I'd like to explore that whole possibility of, you're charging people, but then you can just put it right back into the park that you're charging at. So
It would seem
just a
like
thought.
a Kohl's or something like that. I could see the charging stations. I can't see that happening in the gas stations, because you virtually have a car parked now.
Yeah.
Rather than, and people go into Kohl's and spend a half hour or whatever. So
We haven't seen that yet. And that's what's really interesting about that. We had Menards, we had Myers, we have all those fast food the companies come into the community, but yet we never seen anything addressed to that at all.
I know.
It's kind of like, it's not an idea that's been embraced yet. And it looks like, we're going to have to embrace it at some point.
well, I think I still think there's a lot of skepticism with it.
Oh, absolutely.
And the fact that, I know people are buying them, but as electric rates go up, the charging is gonna go up,
Yeah.
and everything's going up, and, I think, what are they talking about, 40 or 50%? Our electric bills are supposed to be going up, and we have the pleasure of choosing a provider again. But So are we talking about that we would make a requirement? That
I think-
somebody would have?
I think we know that, no, I think we know that if they're coming, and you know that the apartments are gonna have to have them, and you know that the shopping plazas are gonna probably have to have them.
Well, the
So
police
with
department's
that,
gonna need them, the
Yeah.
fire department's gonna need them.
yeah, but
Because
I,
you're not gonna be
Yeah.
able to buy any other vehicle other than an EV. And so.
What I'm saying
right
is-
there,
is-
they're gonna have to have them.
we need to have that conversation, where do you want them? And we're gonna allow them in all districts, which makes sense, because it's not like a gas station, you know? So if you allow for every single section of the code, it should be conditional use and have a subsection. So let's say you go to R1 district and it says, okay, electrical charging stations are allowed here. See, as a conditional use, here's where they could go. And then you go to the 500s and it has a paragraph of what has to happen as a conditional use. Berming and landscaping and
So you're saying that you would make a conditional use for a house to have a charging station in?
no, I don't know necessarily houses would probably have to be, say 2 or more, so we could go into anything,
For public use.
or for
Well,
public use. yeah.
From what I've researched and what I've seen on charging stations, first off, the technology is changing daily.
Yeah.
And it will be 100% universal. If you have a total EV car, you'll be able to plug it in any place. Doesn't matter if it's a Tesla unit or anybody else, you'll be able to plug it in. That computer, the new cars out, their computer, as soon as you plug into it, their computer hooks up with the computer on the charging station, pulls your information in, charges your credit card, does whatever. But the thought process behind it is that all the people that have retails, even gas stations that are like speedways or bigger, Loves, stuff like that, they'll all have them because they can keep people occupied for a half hour, 45 minutes while their car is charging. They can come in and eat lunch. They all have fast food places attached to them. The grocery stores, all the other stores, they all have them, or they have the ability to have them. Right now, everybody's kind of doing a sit and wait because, like I said, the technology's changing. You can buy charging stations; they're out there, on a commercial scale, but there's not a lot of return in it because they can only charge so much for the electricity. So the stores are looking at it as to try to get people in. And I just saw, I don't know if anybody else saw this, but the latest technology on EV that's in development right now is just a pad that sits on your garage floor. And you back your car over the pad, and just like your cell phone, set it on a pad and it charges it. Same exact concept. Only I hate to see somebody's cat that walks between that field, under the car. But, so it's as simple as putting a pad down in your garage, backing your car up. That gives you an idea how fast it's going. So I think a lot of the businesses are absolutely 100% waiting for the universal chargers to come out because the market is still leaning heavy towards Tesla. But as soon as that comes up with Ford and everybody else, they'll all be in line with a universal charger. And then Tesla will have to drop over, or they're going to have to put it out on an enormous amount of charging stations. There's businesses right around this area that actually have charging stations at their office. So,
I think that even the universal charging stations, though, after 5 minutes, they're changing, just like Apple changes their plugs every 5 minutes, they'll say, come to my gas station, we have version 32C, and they only have 32A.
So you can get high test or you can get low test charging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's changed, and the resources that are needed to provide those kinds of things, I think, are still, like you said, personal stuff.
Yeah, the government is giving incentives to businesses to put in charging stations. They absolutely are giving tax credit incentives to put charging stations in their businesses. So, they'll take advantage. I mean, if we ever decide to put in charging stations for the township, for a public area, then there's no better place to put them in other than the police station and the fire department in those parking lots, because they're lit, they're basically manned 24 hours. People feel safe,
Right.
Unless you pop up to a gas station right up by 76. But, all the cars have maps that show them exactly where the next charging station is. So, they'll be detailed. They'll know where to stop or where they have to stop, because the car on its computer will tell you, you should either be at home or stopping here because you don't have enough battery to make it to the next spot.
But it's something we definitely need to start looking into.
So if you have like independent people that want to build a charging station, that's where I could see where zoning would come in.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. You want to have, since it's a structure, and it by definition would be a structure in our code, you need to have some kind of a.
Be commercial as well.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm thinking is, so is the fire department like in a position for electrical fires?
I would assume they are. Yeah.
Because if you,
For lithium ion fires.
yeah, because they're put out,
Yeah.
and if you build it, they will come.
Well, the battery is changing because we got a lithium ion, now they're going to go to sodium ion. Sodium ion has a little bit different, so, like Bill said, it's changing from day to day. But
It is.
yeah, the bottom line is, we're in a good location to take advantage of that.
No doubt about that.
And are we, if you rely, I don't know how many, if you look at Curious' logical conclusion, how many charging stations would you need to service the traffic on 76? What's the outflow into Speedway, into other refueling stations?
Well,
And how could you handle 30 minutes or 40 minutes when if you looked at what the gas stations have?
Well, at some point too, if you start having an influx of charging stations built, California already has issues with brownouts where
Yeah.
they have problems with that.
Yes.
This is my pet peeve because I hate all this stuff, because everybody
Oh,
wants
I'm not
to
either,
their
no.
natural gas, which powers you.
For many
To kill coal, we don't want nuclear. Well,
You're gonna have to look at, probably move into windmills.
And that shows that it's not productive.
Well, you bring up a very valid point. And we've had that discussion at our HOA about people putting small windmills and or solar panels on their roofs. Depending on which way your house faces, around here, the only real juice you're going to get off your roof is if your roof's facing south around here. And that may be the face of the house, so nobody's approached that yet, but
Well, most of the people that I know that have the solar have gotten grants, so they haven't had to foot the bill for it.
well, you get a certain amount of grant. But here's the other thing is, unless you have a new roof, why would you put solar panels on your roof? Because then you have to have them removed, replace your shingles, something to that effect. But you're gonna have more people as electricity goes up. They're gonna go that solar and wind power.
We don't have anything in any of the zoning in regards to items such as that.
We talked about the windmill.
Yeah, we don't that I've read, because as soon as it came up, I read everything I could find in zoning, and it's not.
Well, we never followed through with it, but we did talk about it because the question was, can everybody put a windmill up?
You're gonna get, that would be the noise factor. I can just see it now, somebody's gonna come in for a permit for a windmill, and then you're gonna have, it's gonna be interesting.
They're quiet.
So.
Are they
They're
quiet?
real-
Are
they're
they quiet?
Yeah.
Well, there's
small
always
units,
something, you know,
very
with
quiet.
zoning, it's always something new coming in. There's always going to be something that we're going to be challenged with.
Right.
This is one of them that we should probably at least consider. And if we can't get into a, you know, lock down what it's going to be specifically, because it's always changing, maybe we just put it very vague, but at least have it buffered and have certain conditions that they have to go to the BZA and supply the
Yeah.
drawing. Because if it looks ugly, we don't want it, you know what I mean? Or it looks like hazard, or it's too close to something else. But at least make it a conditional use to go to the board.
Is there no architecture review over here, just?
We don't. It's the BZA is everything. We're talking about with that specific architectural features only for the town center. We did talk about that to, you know, once a historic district is in place and we have that all, you know, with all the stuff online and everything we're doing, the storytelling and all that. Once that's complete, we should probably revisit that, look for specific, how do you want it to look?
I know, it's for even signage and.
Wouldn't it be something?
Oh, yeah, you have to go to the whole review board for that. Yeah.
Sure.
Do we know,
Yeah, well, I went here for it.
does the building department, I mean, have they faced anything yet?
Yeah.
With charging stations?
Let it whip right down through the.
Not that I know of in Portage. I know some in Cuyahoga have, but I haven't heard of anything in Portage. Not that I'm aware of any charging units. I've dealt with them in the past. I've dealt when Tesla first came out. We did it in Macedonia Commons years ago. And we were like, uh-oh, what do we do with this? And we considered a structure, made them go to the BZA, but we kind of were vague with how we did it. Not BZA, Planning Commission at that time, but and we just landscaped it very nice. So as you pull into the parking lot, you'll see there's a bunch of Tesla charging units, and I don't know if you're familiar with Macedonia, but they're in front of Hobby Lobby in that parking area back there behind the Outback. But we landscaped it and you know, at least treated it nice, and it looks pleasant, you know. So
You realize the charging units are really small, right?
they are.
I mean, they're like 3 feet tall by this wide.
It's like a parking meter.
Yeah.
That's it's exactly it. And off of that unit, you get 2 charging stations. So, you know, it's,
But you're gonna have lighting. You're gonna have some lighting as you back up to it.
well, yeah, it's, you know, they have a light self-contained on it that you can see it, but you got to figure that these things are going to be put in lighted areas where people feel safe.
Yeah.
You're not going to put it in a business that is closed at night and that there's no lights. People just aren't going to come to it. But you know, if it's well lit and a safe area, then people will sit on them for a half hour and charge.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
That gives us some ideas.
Yeah, gives us some ideas.
Yeah, to at least put it on the radar.
Yep.
And,
We should circle back even on the wind turbines,
yeah,
because we never, gosh, that's been some years. We never really did complete any of the conversations. And if, like you said, or like you guys were saying, and people are gonna be looking for alternatives.
Yes.
especially if the price of electricity.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll close that. We'll move on to discussion of the town center master plan for 2023.
Yeah, so this is a discussion that's ongoing. This is going to be on the agenda pretty much the whole year. What is the only thing new that's come up with this is that he's working on a conceptual drawing. You gave him the boundaries.
Yeah.
He's going to come back in May with the conceptual drawing that he's working on. This is Mike Wolin, by the way. It's going to be very costly. You might want to, you might, no, just the locations of putting in all the sidewalks and the street lighting we talked about. So we might want to narrow it down a little bit so that I'll let Mike talk about it when we get here and look at conceptual, how much money we're talking about, just a rough idea. Because what Mike's going to do is he's going to get it to a conceptual. This is going to trigger engineering design over $50,000. So what has to happen is once you guys get down to a plan that's going to be acceptable just for the engineering standpoint, I would have to advertise this and put this out to a big firm, because once it hits over 50, we've got to advertise. They'll come in and respond, and basically what we want to do is we want to put conditions that this is a grant-based thing. And then what we can control is maybe we could control some of the sections ourselves and put street lighting where there is already sidewalks. And maybe we just narrow the whole concept down, just so that I just don't want it to be something that 20 years from now, it's still on a drawing and we're hoping to do it. And I think that's how it started off. I think it was a great plan, but it never came to fruition because we could never afford it and nobody ever put money into the specific town center. So if we can narrow that down so it's a project that's doable, I am starting the project initially by a TIF. So the TIF is supposed to come in.
How much money do you have?
Well, right now, I have enough money generated off this TIF for the apartments going behind on the 20 acres. That's going to repave the Town Square West, which is by Wendy's. We're going to repave the entire road, add sidewalks everywhere so it's walkable from the apartments all the way to Wendy's and up to 43, and then put street lighting on that street. Then it's going to take sidewalks and put it on Town Square East. Am I saying that right? I think it's Town Square.
Yeah.
Town Square East.
Wendy's is on the east side.
There's the west side and then the east side. The east side of Town Square would be along the housing development on the other side of the soccer fields and the school. That one is going to be sidewalks added and street light, the lighting as well down there. Now that specific TIF will pay for all that. That's a 30-year TIF. We're going to reverse the taxes, come back to us, pay the streets, put that in, and use it to our advantage. I can TIF it, but it only gets me so far. So that apartment complex, the money we generated will generate enough to do that. But then I still have other areas I got to go. So, and I can certainly TIF projects as we go in, but I'd like to have a better plan of where we go in, go after safe walk to schools, money that's out there through AMETs. But in order to do that, you have to be shovel ready, have a plan. You cannot apply for funding without having a plan ready to go. So if you get safe walk to schools, we could get it all funded. So, but I need a big firm. Like Mike Wallen said, it's way too big. Right now, the scope is way too big for his firm to handle. We'd have to go with a big firm. We'd have to advertise and get. So it's going to come back to the board. Mike's going to talk to you, give you his suggestions, show you the conceptual drawing of what you guys asked for, and then look at ways of scaling it down specific to the town center. And then maybe put something in the code, like if you guys want to go down State Route 43, then we put something specific in the IC district down State Route 43 and add that language so then the developers come in and then we make them pay for it. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on the town center.
In front of the elementary school.
The 3 acres, or a little over 3, yeah.
Right. And then you connect with several businesses and then you come into the township properties there.
Yeah.
And there are sidewalks there around the corner, I believe.
Yeah.
And then the end of the fire department.
The ones that are undeveloped are easy. We can enforce it with the zoning code and make sure they put sidewalks and lighting in for that specific district. But we could add language into the code.
Yeah, they're actually easier because nothing's there.
Right.
Things don't have to be real.
Well, and part of the improvement. If you're going to build in a town center, you need to have the lighting, you need to have the sidewalks, and that's an easy. It doesn't cost us anything to put that in.
Okay.
The tough ones to me are like what we talked about before, like like Gene Neiman's, there's no room.
Right, that's what he's talking about. Some of it's very costly just because the right of way takes. We have to purchase right of way and some of that. And that's where we'll talk and we'll narrow it down. If we have to purchase stuff, we will back away from those areas for a little bit. But he should be here in May for that.
I look forward to seeing that.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on, zoning map amendment change, proposed to change GC zoning district east of I-76 along Talmadge Road to HC highway commercial.
I'll need motions on all the following.
on the zoning map amendment change?
Yeah, to send it,
And the text amendment changes?
yeah, each one of them individually voted on and send to trustees for a public hearing.
Right, because we had a public hearing already.
Yep, just today,
So
yeah,
we'll do each one individually.
please.
All right, so we had that with no comment. Does anyone have any input in regard to that change?
Nope.
Hearing none, if I can have a motion for the zoning map amendment change proposal to change GC zoning district from east of I-76 along Tommy Road to HC Highway Commercial. If I can get a motion and a second on that.
I'll make the motion. Do you want me to speak it off, or is your description good enough?
I'll second the motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The next is the zoning amendment change proposed GC zoning district along State Route 43 to IC integrated commercial. Any comments? Hearing none, if I can have a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Need a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Text amendment change, revised code section 600.04.02.a, parking lot requirement. Any discussion? You have a motion?
Is this talking about all parking lots have to be asphalted, or is this the part that was talking about parking lots being in front of buildings?
The front parking areas. We have too many variances going to the BZA to allow for the front parking. And when we went to regional planning, they came back and said that per their requirements, they said absolutely go ahead and do it in all the districts except for the town center. And I think this board was kind of in a disagreement. We don't have to follow their recommendation on that one. Then that would be entirely up to you. This one changes the way it's written here. It changes the code for all districts. I think the town center already has parking in the front. If you take a look at most of the business, including the one where the zoning office is, we have parking in the front. We have it at the plaza. You have it at the school. You have it at McDonald's. Yeah, it just goes on and on and on. So it's like these all become non-conforming or variance type properties. You know, it's kind of ridiculous. So it's up to you though.
So this text amendment is, change is to follow.
To allow parking in the front.
Okay, all right.
Did we have a first on that?
No, I'll make the motion for the text amendment change revised code section 600.04.02, a parking lot requirements.
We could add the text on that in front.
Yeah.
Sure.
We all understand.
You can make that motion to put that to front parking. Yeah.
You want to make that motion to put that?
And add the language to indicate it's front parking lot requirements.
Sure.
Second.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Do we need to make another second, a motion on that, to approve that?
Sure. After you made the revision.
So what we're gonna need is another motion to approve that because of that last, was just adding language, change. the
Okay.
language.
So I make a motion to approve the text amendment change on revised code 600.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Any seconds? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Tom, I think Sue has a question.
Sorry?
Thank you, Sue. has a question.
In the town center, where we have people that park in front of their businesses, then would this be like their grandfathered in? Because those businesses, they don't have,
They don't have room in the back.
Right,
they
this
don't
is,
have, they don't have a place to park. Yeah, would I be looking at as, well, they're grandfathered in to this change?
well, that was adding that they're allowed to do that.
We're making it allow where they can't park in the front. right now they're not allowed to, and they're all grandfathered in now.
Oh, okay.
We're making it so it's just so that they're compliant.
So our code reflects what's currently in use.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It would have
That's
been,
why we had to do it.
that would have been a thought 20 years ago, 30 years ago, before anything was built,
Right.
you know, but it didn't happen. Or they got variances on it, you know, so.
Thank you.
Text amendment change, section 540.00, temporary use, the 90-day per calendar year for temporary use.
This was in regards to the vendors, to
Correct.
Temporary vendors, yeah, the change, we're putting a date limit, time limit in effect for what temporary means.
Right.
Pretty much what it is. Because right now, we don't have nothing to describe what temporary means in regards to that. So now we're putting the language in of what temporary use is.
And all these have passed regional planning commission, so all of them, just so you're aware.
Any discussion?
No.
And get a motion?
I'll move that we, make the text amendment change regarding temporary uses for 90 days.
Okay. Second?
a second.
In favor? Any opposed? Text amendment change, section 201.03.c, change to one copy of site drawings along with electronic submission sent to the zoning department. Any discussion?
No.
No. Need a motion?
I make the motion with the text amendment change regarding change to one copy of site drawings along with electronic submission sent to the zoning department.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, text amendment change, section 201.03.c.1, change to one copy of architectural plans along with electronic submissions to the zoning department. And any discussion? And have a motion?
I'll motion it.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Text amendment change, section 201.03.c.2, change to one copy of site plan along with electronic submission to the zoning department. Discussion? Okay. A motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That concludes text amendment changes. And we need to set a date for public hearing.
I think that was just on there.
Oh, yeah, that was just on there.
Just erase that section.
All right, let's remove that.
Make a motion.
All right, any good of the order?
Tom, did you want to ask about?
No, I did. Mike doesn't know anything about it right now.
Right.
Yeah, that's all in the county. You could find out on the county website. And I think the contact from the county, he did talk to the trustees. This is the roundabout on Mogador. And the county engineer said that any questions to contact the county engineer, and that the plan should be on their website for it. And Larry Jenkins, I believe, is the contact. And then instead of set public hearing, you probably want to set the next meeting date. I think that's what.
That be 11th of May?
Second Thursday.
That would be 11th of May.
That was
Okay. Any interest that we may need to know about building? And it's also land being cleared on 43.
So which one are you talking about? So we're talking.
And there's one on the west side?
There's obviously more than one.
Well, there's so Chase Bank, I think I told you, Chase Bank is started down on 18. That's next to the Meyer gas station. That's going to be a bank, Chase. Aldi's is getting near, I would say, mid-May.
keep saying it.
I did.
That's gonna be this year.
Yeah, Yeah, and then the assisted living center, along with the apartments and villa-style homes, is looking, I mean, they have their permits, they're ready to get, the conditional use permits are already granted. They're working on plans, all that kind of stuff, so the money's going there. I would anticipate late this year, start maybe early spring of next year. They may start with utilities later in the year, but they're in the plan stages, and obviously construction costs are very high, so I think they're waiting until it stabilizes just a little bit too.
On 43, I thought it was north of Howell Road on the west side. My memory serves.
Oh, okay, so you're talking about behind the tractor.
Yes.
Okay, so he did purchase that property.
It's in
Um,
6B.
Yeah, he is going to come in with plans for an expansion of that. He bought the house, he's gonna maintain the house, split that off into a lot split, per the zoning. At the time, GC was 1 acre. As we're moving to IC, we'll have to look to see how, it actually is gonna fit better in IC, because in GC, that house is a non-conforming use. In IC, we could allow for the house, which makes it nice for him. But that's gonna be an expansion.
Now,
Let's-
what's the existence of water and sewer there? On that corner?
There's sewer there.
Okay.
Yeah, water's a little bit up the street. With this IC zoning change, I would anticipate, and like I said before, we don't have anybody that has come in yet and discussed changes to the IC district. However, I have a developer coming in this week to discuss some things, and in fact, I know he's watching our meetings. So we'll see what kind of development that this sparks with the IC district on 43, and hopefully that we do get some water. This particular one, if I was willing to accept his proposal, we were able to work it out and bring it to the BZA. And that's, you never know. I don't know what he's coming in with. He said he would bring his water from Kent, and he's had preliminary talks with Kent to start bringing water down 43. So that's a win-win. So changing the zoning code, it just, is a very good thing for Brimfield.
Okay. Anyone else have any, good of the order, questions?
The house on Martha is gone.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so that was tore down. We tore that, well, we had it tore down. We contracted with Hemling, and then,
Oh, I was thinking that was the guys who bought that property.
well, it changed. We had Hemling coming in the next day, and they hurried up and got their contractor. He pulled permits. I told Hemling, okay, let him do it. And then Hemling knocked down the one on Brimfield Drive for us.
Okay.
So we got the one on Brimfield Drive down and that one. Lauren and I were out, and we seen 2 more today, so we're going to, after 2 more abandoned. We'll either get them fixed up or knocked down. The other one that we're going to potentially knock down this year, and we are, Jendi, I think it started with you, is 1203 Door Elite.
Yeah.
So we finally have court set up, and there's paperwork from our attorney to have everything auctioned off to the courts, and waiting on the courts to allow us to auction off the items that are inside that house. There's a Corvette, about various other things that we'll have to auction off before we knock it down.
Who's the owner of that?
No, they live in Florida, so I don't want to announce their name because, but yeah.
That's fine, I didn't.
Yeah, but they live in Florida. We finally got service. We knew they were there. It just never would pick up, and then we finally got it. So that's what's taking so long, is the court won't do anything until you serve them. But yeah, we got it, and we're getting through some of our zoning stuff. We had 13 cases. We narrowed that down to about 5 or 6 right now in the courts. So we did get about 7 of them completed. Sue's been going to court with me. She enjoys it. She learns a lot going with me with the court cases, and Sue's the liaison for zoning, so she attends all the public hearings in the courts, and we're doing a good job getting it all cleaned up. Sue's wonderful.
Are you seeing any impact throughout the community, and people knowing that the zoning department's getting serious about these issues, that you need to start moving forward?
Well, I can tell you, so Town Center, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Town Center Automotive. We've been working with them for 2.5 years. They're one of our cases. And I want to say he said close to 100 cars were removed off that property.
That's on 43.
Mm-hmm. Next to the outpost.
There was 100.
They removed 100 so far. Yes. It was, we cited it as a junkyard, and it's an automotive repair shop. But behind there, and I don't know if anybody knew this, but yeah, we've gotten rid of 100 of them, and probably about 500 tires out of there as well.
Wow.
So
Where's that again?
right next to outpost.
You know, more.
And a lot of people don't see our zoning, you know, Jenny, some of this started with you here, and then we've been following up, you know, trying to get it done, and it does take a long time, especially something that massive. But we're getting them cleaned up, and we're getting houses knocked down, and yeah, things are good.
So
If you look at the ones that were fire homes before on Howe, I don't know if anybody's got a chance to go down Howe. We had three houses we're gonna knock down. All three got renovated. And the one as farthest on, what is that, Malloy, right where it hits in Malloy there?
Yeah, it's right on the corner. It's on the edge with the pond.
Please go past it. It looks gorgeous. And that was one of them we were tearing down. So it does make a difference.
So if we get construction on 43, I mean, our plan per this committee was to sidewalks and lighting all the way up to Kent.
Yep.
So any construction that goes in before we get architecturals, are we going to be able to enforce sidewalks and lighting?
If you put a text amendment in and we add it, yes.
Okay.
And that's what I think we need to do.
Yep.
At the next meeting, when Mike comes in, we'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
And then you guys could discuss it, and you guys could do that, because some of the areas we won't be able to afford going all the way down. And then, you know, I don't know how far they're gonna go with safe walks to school. That's something that Mike I have to explore a little bit, but nevertheless, it's not gonna hurt to have developers put it in, so.
Right, and a lot of that area is up for development. I mean, some of the houses that are there, you know, the zoning allows commercial buildings to go in there. Those houses are going bye-bye and in goes commercial.
And the only other thing that I'd ask the board, because we had a lot of feedback from the Portage Park District about light pollution.
Yeah.
And we had a meeting, and they're very concerned with light pollution in Brimfield because of the bog and because of their park. And I said, yeah, I mean, we'll look at lighting and see how we could keep it dimmed down, but we want to keep it safe too. We don't want it so dark that people are getting robbed either, so.
We had a discussion with that when Myers went
Yeah.
in, with the D-Hall property.
Yes,
We talked about that because Just Cricket had a concern with that.
correct.
And I thought they used best practice,
They did.
and
We have no issues down
you're
there.
right.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of confused now.
Well,
Do we have some like?
I am
sea
too.
lighting that's
No, we
involved,
don't.
or-
No, with Brimfield, I talked to Cassie, I talked to Todd. We don't have an issue here. I think it's a little bit misleading. We're not city of Akron. We're not downtown Cleveland. We don't have that much light pollution here. So I think it's a little bit, you know, a little bit off with that,
Now,
but
speaking of light, now the PUDs, right? Is that the term? PUDs, not PUCs?
PRD,
PRDs.
Yeah.
None of those have lighting requirements in those.
No.
And if you wanted to add lights, you would then have to create a lighting.
a lighting district, and
And
then
it
you,
would go to the trustees then.
they'd have to vote on it, and then what happens is the township would bill back to the HOA, and then it
Would
just
it be
gets,
the HOA or would each lot?
I think it's each lot. I
Each lot.
think John bills each lot. Yeah.
Assessment.
Correct.
Absolutely is.
And it
I've
usually,
researched it.
and you know, there's been, yeah, absolutely. There's been, you could probably talk about it better than I can, but there's been a lot of them that have researched it. So that's too much money. We don't want to do it.
Right.
So we just faced this with Cranberry Creek. We just had some emails going back and forth with Cranberry Creek, and I had to do my research on it. And I did see one section in notes that it said that they wanted to light the Cranberry Creek. So then I said, oh boy, I better do my homework, because hopefully the previous administration didn't miss it. And it, you know, so I'm looking through, and they didn't. So what happened is the approved drawing from the Board of Zoning Appeals gets sent, you know, to regional planning for consideration. So my best bet was to reach out to regional planning and get the official record that was sent from our BZA to regional planning, and then what was their approval? So after reaching out to Todd, he researched it back from 2005. These things come up 18 years later, you know? So looking it up, no, there was no lighting on that specific one. So that was, but, you know, we were always getting challenged on it. Hey, how come you missed my light? You know, it's like, well, it wasn't on the plan, you know, so.
If you go back historically, I don't think any of the developments had any type of lighting.
And that's a big argument because, you know, and you, this is up to this board. You guys can certainly add that if you'd like to put lighting into the subdivisions. There's a lot of people that don't want lights because they're coming from the cities. They want to be in a township with no lights. So, you know, that's entirely, I'm going to leave that up to this board. If you guys want to ever, yeah.
If you look at, you know, I spent time in the military, on military bases, and there's no lights anymore.
Right.
In the military,
Yeah.
it's dark everywhere.
Right.
But if you go to a campus, then the campus is the opposite.
Right.
There's lighting everywhere. And I always thought lighting would be reflective of any criminal type of activity that you have.
Yeah.
Is that encouraging any type of theft, or do we need to light in certain areas and so forth? But
That's up to you. If you
Yeah,
guys
so-
want, if you
so
think
far
you
we
need to
haven't
add lighting,
seen it.
yeah,
So-
we don't have anything.
under the safety aspect of it, unless I guess.
I haven't heard of anything.
Presented, yeah. We haven't seen any need to mandate anything such as that, so.
The general consensus of our allotment is no.
Well, I can tell you this. So the new subdivision regulations that go into effect with Portage County, I sat on that committee. The new Portage County subdivision regs will require lighting. But the county engineer wants to, because it's in there, the county engineer says, no, I don't think this is a good idea. I think this needs to come back to the townships, and it should be township specific. So if Brimfield wants to put lights in their subdivisions, great. But if Reedstown doesn't, then they should have that. So, and I kind of agree with them. I think that should be a township thing. And I think this board is where it needs to, I mean, it's going to be this board that decides that. If you want to have that, that's something you guys should be. I could add it to the agenda if you'd like. We could discuss it, not today, but yeah.
I think that from the input here is that there is no need yet
Okay.
to address that issue.
Who ends up paying the electric bills on the lights?
Residents.
Residents within the light, it would be a property tax.
It's like another tax.
Property tax.
And my consensus, everybody I talk to, they feel like they're taxed enough. So,
Well,
you know.
I don't know what the cost would be per homeowner.
It's minimal.
You're looking at the cost of the lamps themselves and the wiring and the excavation to put them in, put the bases in, and put the,
Well, if you,
it's gotta be up in
but if you,
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well,
Depending upon
It-
how.
it's-
The HOA is part of the HOA fee, right down to what your
Yeah.
fees pay towards, except your common area, your landscape.
Right.
and your
But-
electric, so.
but under the lighting district in Brimfield, like, we could have a lighting district at
Yes,
Barnett
correct.
Ridge,
Mhm.
okay? It's a ESIP program. And so you get into the ESIP program, and it's my understanding it's about $40 a year per resident of the allotment. Because not every house has a light in front of it. They typically, they're 50 feet apart. So 50 feet being staggered. This side of the road, then 50 feet, you got one here, then 50 feet on the other side, and that's how that goes up. The installation cost and the light cost is somewhere around $1,500 to $1,700. But once you install it, if you're under ESIP, then First Energy, Ohio Edison, will come out and make all those repairs and change the bulbs and do anything else. Somebody knocks one down, they put it back up, because ESIP is somehow subsidized under the PUCO. Now, my conversations with First Energy is that the ESIP program, they believe, because it's been in existence for 40 years, it's going to go away. They believe the PUCO is going to eliminate ESIP. So I asked them, and ESIP only covers multi-vapor, high-pressure sodium type lighting, no LED. But First Energy has another program that I can't remember what its abbreviations were, that is LED. Right now, I'm currently waiting on pricing for that.
Right.
Just because I want to know, and I absolutely know the person that's in charge of that. And he's going to give me quotes as to what those are, what that lighting looks like. And then, this board would decide how they want to proceed. Because in my opinion, you get rid of the multi-vapors. Number one, they're expensive to operate. Number two, they have a shelf life of 6 months, and the bulb's history. LED much cheaper, and 5 years life expectancy on most lights. So, and they're the same price. That's what's come down. LED used to be up here. High pressure sodium's gone up a little bit. LED's come down. And now the industry is trying to eliminate high pressure sodium, multi-vapor, mercury vapor lamps and go strictly to LED, just simply because of the consumption of electricity. It'll lower the consumption, and First Energy doesn't like to sell those. They do have a program, but they don't really like to sell it because they sell electricity. So, but if we're going to do lighting, we need to go with LED. That much I can tell you.
Did you want to bring up
Get a motion to
the
adjourn?
about those setbacks
Make a motion.
along the bond?
Oh, wait, before we adjourn, the next meeting will be 11 May 2023 at 7 o'clock. All right, now I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Good meeting.
That's because you're on that topic. I just
I
didn't know.
am. It's going to be repairing setback.